Hello everyone. I never thought I would post something like this, but I have to say it. My name is Mark, and for the past decade I have been living a lie. I was married to a woman named Sarah, who everyone, including me for a long time, thought was the perfect wife. That is not her real name, but in this story I will call her that to avoid any further problems with her. She was kind, always remembered to ask about my day, and was involved in our community. But it was all a carefully constructed facade. This is the story of how I found out that my wife of 10 years was living a double life, and what I did about it. The first few years were, honestly, a dream. Sarah was supportive of my career, we had a nice little house, and we shared the same dumb sense of humor. The problems started so small I didn't even recognize them as problems. She'd have to work late suddenly, or a girls' night would pop up last minute. Her phone, which used to be left casually on the coffee table, started going everywhere with her, face down. I teased her about it, saying she was addicted to those puzzle games. She'd just laugh it off and give me a hug, and I'd forget all about it. The kindness felt so real. I feel so foolish now for not seeing that the constant, low-level busyness was her building a wall between us, brick by brick. The lies began to get bigger. She'd tell me she was visiting her sick aunt out of state for a weekend, and I'd later find out from her mom that the aunt was perfectly fine and had been at a family dinner the whole time. When I gently asked about the discrepancy, Sarah would get flustered, then tearful, saying she must have gotten the dates mixed up because she was so stressed with work. She'd apologize profusely, making me feel like a monster for ever doubting her. This happened over and over, little stories that didn't quite add up, always explained away with tears and promises to be less forgetful. I started walking on eggshells, afraid to question anything and trigger another emotional episode. The woman I loved seemed to be slipping away, replaced by a stranger who was very, very good at crying. The real discovery didn't happen through her phone. It was something much more mundane, and that's what made it so devastating. Our 10-year anniversary was coming up, and I wanted to plan a surprise trip to the place we got engaged. I remembered she had kept a box of old memorabilia from that time in our lives, hotel receipts, a map, things like that. I went up to the attic to find it, thinking it would be a sweet walk down memory lane. After moving some boxes, I found it. But tucked underneath her keepsake box was another, smaller shoebox I'd never seen before. My heart started pounding for some reason. I opened it, and my whole world just stopped. Inside the box were stacks of photos. Photos of Sarah and a man I'd never seen before. They weren't just recent, the dates scribbled on the backs went back years. There were vacation pictures from places she told me she'd gone to with her college friends. Ticket stubs for concerts and movies from nights she said she was working late. And at the very bottom, a stack of letters tied with a ribbon. The first one I opened started with, "My dearest Sarah, I can't believe it's been 5 wonderful years." I felt the floor drop out from under me. The math was undeniable. She had been living this second life, with this other man, for almost our entire marriage. I sat on the dusty attic floor for what felt like hours, just staring at a photo of them laughing, completely numb. The numbness lasted for a day. Then the anger hit. It was a cold, sharp anger that made it hard to breathe. I wanted to storm downstairs and confront her right then. But something stopped me. I realized that if I did that, she'd just cry, make more excuses, and I'd never get the full truth. She was too good at manipulating the situation. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I put the box back exactly as I found it. I went downstairs, made dinner, and asked about her day. I felt like an actor in my own life, playing the part of the happy, clueless husband while my entire reality had been shattered. Every smile from her felt like a knife twist. I started quietly investigating. It was like a switch had flipped in my brain. I wasn't the trusting husband anymore. I was a detective building a case. I checked our phone records online and found a number that appeared hundreds of times, often for long calls late at night. I noted the dates of her upcoming work trips and girls' weekends. The hardest part was pretending everything was normal. I'd kiss her goodbye in the morning, and my skin would crawl. The emotional whiplash was exhausting. One minute I was drowning in grief for the marriage I thought I had, the next I was burning with a quiet rage, planning my next move to uncover more of her lies. I finally had enough evidence to confront her. I planned it for a Sunday morning, a time when we normally have a lazy breakfast together. I printed out pages of the phone records, made copies of a few key photos from the box, and laid them out on the kitchen table. When she came downstairs, her smile faded instantly. "What's all this, honey?" she asked, her voice already getting that shaky, defensive tone. I just looked at her and said, "I know everything, Sarah. I know about him. I know it's been 10 years. I want to hear you say it." Her reaction wasn't what I expected. The tears didn't come. Instead, her face went cold. The kind, gentle mask she wore for a decade completely slipped away. She didn't deny it. She just sighed, like I was a tedious chore she had to deal with. "Well, I guess the jig is up," she said, her voice flat. She admitted it all, but with no remorse. She said she felt trapped and unfulfilled, and that this other man understood her needs. She said she stayed with me because our life was comfortable. Hearing her describe our marriage, our home, as just comfortable after I had given her everything, it was worse than any apology could have been. The woman I loved was gone, if she ever existed at all. The emotional impact was a roller coaster I couldn't get off. The initial shock was followed by a deep, gut-wrenching sadness. I mourned the loss of the future I thought we'd have, the memories I now knew were fake. Then the anger would return, white-hot and blinding. I'd go for long drives just to scream in the car where no one could hear me. I felt so incredibly stupid for not seeing it sooner, for every time I accepted her flimsy excuses. My self-esteem was in the gutter. How could I not be enough for 10 whole years? The betrayal was a physical pain, a constant ache in my chest that made it hard to get out of bed some days. Acceptance felt a million miles away. After the raw pain subsided a little, a cold clarity settled in. I knew I wanted a divorce, but I couldn't let it end with her just walking away into her other life without any consequences. She had stolen a decade from me. I decided on my revenge. It wasn't going to be dramatic or illegal. It was going to be quiet, strategic, and devastating. I wanted her to feel the same shock and powerlessness that I felt when I opened that box in the attic. I started planning meticulously, ensuring every move was within the bounds of the law. My revenge would be a masterpiece of quiet justice. My revenge was simple but effective. I knew from our joint accounts that she was planning a spa weekend, which was really a trip with him. First, I hired a process server. As she and her affair partner checked into a romantic bed and breakfast, they were greeted not by a concierge, but by a man handing her an envelope. It was the divorce papers, filed on grounds of adultery, served to her in front of the man she'd chosen over me. I made sure to include a cover sheet listing every single lie I'd uncovered, every date, every location, a cold, clinical timeline of her decade of deception. I wanted there to be no room for her to spin a story to him about our failing marriage. He saw the truth, served to her on official court letterhead. But that was just part one. The second act was financial. Over the years, I'd been quietly moving small amounts of money into a separate account, money I'd inherited from my grandfather that was legally mine. She knew about it but never paid much attention. What she didn't know was that I had used it to make a few very smart investments. The week after she was served, I liquidated them. I then paid off the entire mortgage on our house, which was in my name only, thanks to a prenup her family had insisted on to protect her. I had the deed sent to her new address with a note. "Now you're free from everything that was so comfortable. You owe me nothing. I own my future, and it doesn't include you." She had traded stability for secrecy, and now she had neither. The final step was reclaiming my narrative. I knew she would try to play the victim with our friends and family. So I preempted it. I sent a brief, calm, and factual email to our immediate families and close mutual friends. I didn't trash her. I simply stated that after 10 years of marriage, I had discovered Sarah had been engaged in a long-term affair and that we were divorcing. I said I valued their friendship but would need some time and space to heal. The response was overwhelming support for me. By being the first to speak, and by doing so with dignity, I took away her power to control the story. She was left with the consequences of her own actions, isolated in the truth she had tried so hard to hide. Looking back, I learned that trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't ignore the small lies. They are the cracks in the foundation. My revenge wasn't about hurting her. It was about reclaiming my power and my life. I took a devastating situation and ensured I walked away stronger, with my integrity and my future intact. The best revenge truly is living well. I'm in therapy now, rebuilding myself, and while the scar is still there, it doesn't hurt anymore. To anyone going through something similar, you will get through this. Prioritize your peace. You deserve honesty and respect. Thank you for listening.